Okay, apparently live, Jira.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next session. My name is Chad Toprak, and I'd like to begin by acknowledging that Freeplay hosts and broadcasts from the stolen lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations, where stories have been shared and games have been played since time immemorial. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and to everyone watching who has a connection to the world's oldest continuing culture. Sovereignty was never ceded, and the violence of the colonial project is ongoing. Freeplay also stands in solidarity with Black communities both here and around the world against prejudice, injustice, and violence. Black Lives Matter is not a new or revolutionary statement, but it is one that needs to be said and said again and said louder. So welcome to this session titled No Budget, No Bosses, The Making of Utopias. And it's delivered by AAA Collective. And we have with us Chloe and Jira. Chloe and Jira are members of AAA Collective. AAA is a software art collective based in Berlin with members from countries including Australia, Argentina, Russia, Germany, the US, and France. They make video games, give lectures and performances, maintain a blog, and run a public community event called Art Games. That's with 3 A's. Please make them welcome, and over to you.
Okay, hi everybody, I'm Chloe.
Hi, I'm Jira.
So we're really happy to present today. We wish that we could all be together in real life, but it's exciting for us to stream this way anyway. So today we're going to, sorry.
No, sorry, I just wanted to say, I mean, it's like we've presented it like, you know, like only in Europe, like everything we do. So it's like really cool to like be involved in an Australian project as like 2 Australians as well.
Yeah, Jira and I were both born in Australia, so it's really exciting to present to an Australian audience. And speaking of that, thank you, Chad, for acknowledging the protests at the moment. And we also wanted to state that we stand with the protesters, and we're watching what's happening all over the world at the moment. So thank you for acknowledging that, Chad. So yeah, our talk is called No Bosses, No Budget. And it's about how we made our latest game, Utopias, or how we made a game about utopias with 10 people, no boss, no creative director, no money, and mostly didn't kill each other. So who are we? We are a AAA Collective, so there's 10 of us. As Chad mentioned, we have people from all over the world. Most of us live in Berlin. One member lives in Moscow. I think Chad actually already kind of introduced these things, so I can skip over some of these notes, but maybe it's interesting to know the kind of origin story of the collective. We formed out of the event that was run called Art Games. Maybe, Jira, you'd like to speak about that, because I think you were really like there at the origin.
Yeah, sure. So I am from the Sunshine Coast, which I imagine a lot of you know about, and it's a small place, and I didn't really have anyone. I didn't know anyone that was like interested in art, so I moved to Berlin, like seeking a community that of like people who make, you know, like are interested in game engines and making art with game engines and all these things. And I couldn't see anyone like that was doing that. So I just started this event called Art Games. And that's like how AAA formed, was like out of this event, which I co-organized with another member, Mela. And yeah, it was going on for many years, and we were just showing our own projects, and like we got in guest speakers, and we did all kinds of things. There's many, like it was like every event was completely different. But eventually, like, you know, we'd been meeting and talking about like this for so long, and then we decided we wanted to make a game together. And that was kind of how AAA formed, was basically out of this community event. And that's why there's so many people, is because it's like it was out of an event, really.
Cool. Can you go to the next slide for me, Jira? Cool. This is a picture from Dystropicana, which was the first anthology that AAA made. There was like less people involved in this one, and it was more of a kind of a game jam format. Was there anything else you wanted to say about that one, Jira, before I... Oh, you changed that already, so I take that as a no.
I changed it back.
Okay.
I have to say something now.
Go for it.
I don't know. I mean, it was, yeah, I think it was a cool little game.
And then the next project was Dottie Mutations, and this was really where I guess like the collective sort of became a bigger group, and this is how we figured out how do we work together, what are our shared ideas. So this project, we decided to have a process where at the beginning each of us made 3 different assets, and we put them all into a pool, and everyone in the collective could use any assets from that pool to make their game for this anthology. And yeah, it was a really cool project. A lot of people used the assets in really unexpected ways. We also chose to not just make assets that we specialize in. So some people might be more familiar with recording sound or music, but people who weren't as familiar with that also gave that a go. Or I don't know, I'm not like a very good 3D modeler, but I also produced like a mesh for this game. So it's a really cool way to start to develop, I guess, shared ideas and shared aesthetic sensibilities. Yeah, and then our next project is Utopias.
Yes.
Your turn, Jira, sorry.
Yeah, so one other thing I'd say about Dottie Mutations is it really feels like it was like our it's like where our identity forms largely, because it was like a project built around like kind of like a making games, like focusing on the process, and like how we as a group of people could make games in ways that are like, you know, different to like a commercial model. So Utopias was really like our second larger project, and then just a lot of it is in response to Dottie Mutations. When I think, and I say that because this is not going to be a promo talk. Don't worry about that. We're not here to promote Utopias. We're here to just talk about the hows and whys of what it is, and like why we did certain things, and like, yeah, just like the story behind it. So just a brief description of Utopias is it's a I have to read this thing. Utopias Navigating Without Coordinates is a video game network of 9 worlds, each one a personal utopia developed by a member of AAA Collective. So like the structure of the project is there's like this like center like hub world, which you can see in this image, which is like a network of planets, and each one contains like a separate like utopia that you visit, and they're all very different. Like one of them well, they vary completely. Like one of them is a hard science fiction about like a phase-locked planet, and like what it would be like to live on a society you know, in a completely different I didn't make that one, so I don't know much about the science. But yeah, it's like very it's, you know, it's like something that's like much more like a hard science fiction to like there's another one where you are like an ecological terrorist who's like the way there's like a loophole in like the this like law that people cannot like mine planets if there's life there. So it's like you have this gun that shoots life. So it's like you kind of are shooting like horses and monkeys onto the ground so that like there's like life forms there. So it's like a shooter that you don't kill, you create life. So it's like something that's more humorous. And then to like the more like abstract and experimental. So there's like a very many different types of experiences, but the theme is utopias with all of them. So now I'm going to play a little bit of Utopias so you can get an idea of it. How long have we been going for? It's 10 minutes. 10 so I could play for like 15 minutes, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think like between 10 and 15 minutes is probably okay. I mean, if someone has a question, maybe we can answer that first. It says for later, but I'm happy to answer questions when we see them. So the question is, maybe this is a good one for you, Jira. Why do you call yourself AAA?
I think that there is an aspect of humor to that. We were called, the event was called Art Games, so it kind of like, you could say that there's like a trajectory because it started with A or something like that. We went through so many names, we couldn't agree on names for so long, and I just felt like, and I think a lot of us just felt like it was intuitively felt right somehow. I guess also it's just like, obviously AAA is like, you know, it's like if we made movies and we called ourselves Hollywood movies. Like it's like so generic, but also so like massive. Like as a you know, it's like we've basically claimed ownership of basically the rest of video games that exist. So I don't know, I think it's kind of funny like that, but
basically it's a stupid joke.
Yeah.
But I think it also kind of maybe like kind of sums up our attitude to games in a sense. Anyway, we're gonna play the game. Let's play the game. So do you want to like talk a little while we play still, Jira, or?
Yeah, feel free to ask questions in the chat, and like Chloe, like if you want to say stuff too, and also Chad, I don't know if you want to interject as well, like, yeah, like
Cool, okay, so if I see any questions during the game, like if anyone, I don't know, sees something that they're interested in during the game and wants to ask about it, go for it. Otherwise, we'll also maybe just...
Can you hear it? And is the volume okay?
Yeah, it's loud. I think it's hard to hear us now, though.
Okay.
Can you turn it down?
I don't know if I can.
Oh, why not?
Because I mean, it would be the system volume.
Oh, I see.
Is it quieter if I do that?
I think so. I can't really tell.
I don't think it will be.
Okay, let's keep going and see. It's better now. The beginning was really loud. If people are really having trouble hearing, though, say again in the chat, and maybe we'll just turn the volume of the game off. I don't know.
Or we just don't talk.
Or that.
So you are this little genderless being. If you zoom out, here is the network. I'll read that out loud, actually. I remain locked before all the threads are gathered. Visit them and return to me. So,
Someone has a tip for how to turn just the game down. On the taskbar, right-click the sound icon, open the volume mixer, and you should be able to see the volume just for the game, and you can lower the game there.
How's that?
Maybe just a little more, not much, but... still sounds kind of loud to me, but okay, now it's off.
I realize that this also won't work because each game is a separate exe.
Oh, true. Yeah, because of the way the game's built, this might be kind of complicated. But let's just turn it down for now, and we'll deal with it as we go.
Okay.
Maybe just talk a little louder though when we speak, I guess.
Okay.
Rapidly changing content, could you let them know for an epilepsy warning?
Yeah, this one does actually. Yes. There is. Epilepsy warning.
Yeah, maybe an epilepsy warning in this game. There is some rapidly changing content.
So this game is called Bird Person Controller, and it's by the AAA member Fedya, who is based in Moscow. I'm gonna pick the bird.
Yeah, maybe even a little more. Yeah, that's better. Okay. And just speak up when you speak because it's hard to hear you over that.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, so this is by Fedya, and in this game you are like there's like all these creatures and cages, and you have to create a flock to free yourselves. Here's some creatures. And this dog. And so now we have a size 6 of 28 flock. You can see they will follow me. And when you have enough, you can return to the nest. And now those birds are free, so we can no longer control them. And you just kind of loop over the game like this until you've freed everything, and the ones that are freed are no longer in cages, so you can't like add them to your flock. They're just like flying around in the environment. Should I move on, or what do you think, Chloe?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, let's move on, because then we can show something else.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe we could show, we'd love to show your game, Jira, but I think that is for sure not appropriate if someone has epilepsy. Like that could be really dangerous, but maybe we could show Jessica's game, which is quite calm. And also quite different to the other games that we plan to show.
Yeah, so now you'll see that there is this, like this object like that is referenced from that previous game, and also like this textile as you finish, like it grows. Like with that.
I can't use the well at all because of the volume issue again.
Is that better?
Yeah, a little more down.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's just much louder than you.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so like you can see that like this object like reference from the previous game, and also like it's in this textile. So as you finish, like as you complete these utopias, this sense of peace like is like kind of growing, and like this textile is like becoming more like filled with things. And when you finish them all, something happens. Okay. I mean, I do kind of want to play Tristan's game, but...
Oh, we should definitely play Tristan's game. Let's play it. It's super nice.
So it's called, this game is called Carl von Linne's Nightmare, which is apparently in reference to... do you know the full story, Chloe? It's like someone who like believed in like taxonomy, or like that like all creatures must be classified somehow. Like,
I'm not sure if maybe it's actually the first person who created like a. I think they're the first person who created a taxonomy system for biology, for living organisms. He's also known as like Carl Linnaeus.
oh, right.
So I think like Tristan's game really started with like the characters, right?
Yeah, which are amazing, as you will see.
Yeah, Tristan's game has really, really beautiful characters. And I think probably that's like it's the only game I can think of where in this whole world where the game really started with the characters.
Okay, let me know if the volume's too loud.
Probably. It's too loud.
Okay.
Sorry, it's just I can't hear you at all then when the game's on. So we have to do it for every game, I think. So something for people in the audience, probably you can also see already that technically the structure of the game is that it's actually 9 separate executables which launch each other. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the talk and how that, like the process of making that.
So I guess I'll read what it's saying.
Go for it.
Oh, so you're a traveler who, welcome to our city. Haven't seen much tourists around since Instagram shut down in 20XX. You can take a pic of me though, if you want. I used to be a model, you know. You're only staying for 24 hours, right? That's pretty short. But I hope you'll take the time to chat with our citizens. See you later. Libra? Euros? We don't use that around here, sorry. Bitcoins? Eh, maybe. You can also just pick a banana. It's free, you know. Help yourself. So what brings you to this forsaken island? It's not even on Google Map anymore. You know, actually, if you follow that sign on your right at the bottom of the stairs, legend says it leads to the secret entrance to the darknet. Oh, that's a weird hitbox. Banana. So, no Wi-Fi here. Not allowed. Whoa, careful with that gun, dude. Oh, right. It's just a banana, of course. Sorry, I'm kind of tense lately, you know what I mean? I lost my weed somewhere around. Hit me up if you see anything, okay? And look out for the cops. They're everywhere. Oh, yeah.
There's a question from the chat here. Are these assets free, pre-built ones, or made by the artist? Yeah, so everything was made by Tristan, I think, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
We actually...
Sorry, dear.
Yeah, actually, that brings up an interesting point, which is with Dottie Mutations, like where we made all these assets, we released them so like people can actually use the assets we use for Dottie Mutations in their own games if they want. And we also talked about releasing everything we made for Utopias. Like we haven't done that, but it's something we're talking about. So maybe all these creatures might be released if people want to use them and stuff. This guy's a nerd. Oh, I'm reading about viruses lately. It says right here, if bacteria are without a doubt part of living entities, the virus's status is more ambiguous. They include genes, but cannot reproduce through them. They will then use reproductive system of bacteria as if a document would use a copy machine to replicate itself numerous times. Some viruses prefers RNA over DNA, which means any molecule could take DNA's place, opening speculations for fundamentally different living systems. Some consider the actual scientific definition of life is inadequate regarding viruses' existence, and should be expanded to include them. Well, anyway, be careful not to catch a cold while you're here, okay? Oh my god. This game is like so 2020, and I never realized about like viruses and cops. Like,
yeah, I think I played it like right before when we were playtesting. I playtested it like right before release, and I was like, "Whoa, this game seems different in this light."
Yeah. Hey there, I'll have a bunch of fresh sheets prepared for you at the hotel. That building behind me. Feel free to settle down, have a little nap there, and join us later on for a cozy evening. Okay, I'll talk to one more person. That's cool. What I got in the head is a brainwaves analyzer. Let me analyze you. Damn, indicates 0 hertz. Are you brain dead? Wait a minute. Or is this stuff just broken? Yeah, who knows?
Also made the music for this game, which I really love.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really love the 2 sound loops.
So it's like this game has like 3 like times, and it's like each of these characters has like a different kind of story if you talk to them each day. I'm kind of rushing through it now just so you get an idea. but like each of them kind of has like a narrative through the whole thing.
Should we go soon to the next game, Jira?
Sorry?
I was going to ask, should we go soon to the next game? We're at about
or maybe even we just
now.
play this one and then it's done, because
Yeah,
like
okay.
we're
we're at 9:30, so that gives us then like half an hour for talk and questions, which it would be nice, of course, if people have time for questions as well.
Yeah, so we'll finish this one and then that's it. Okay. Finally, someone that comes talking to me. I was starting to fall asleep. It's exhausting to swim all day. Eek. You don't know how lucky you are. Also, you can wear fancy socks. Could you by any chance help me out and get a beer? Oh, yeah, that's just what I needed. Thankies. And I think I'll just talk to this guy because you can see like a progression. Nope, didn't find my weed, but it's all right, you know. I can grow more at home. I got other stuffs anyway. Got them from some two-headed fella who stopped by on his way to the next island. Doubt he will find anybody there, to be honest. Hey, wanna try that yellow pill? Your gamma brainwaves are gonna get nuts with this. Chloe, should I just finish this? Like, I'll just go to sleep and exit the game so that and then we can move on?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think the ending kind of will make it make sense more. God, that headache. You could think about this island as some scientific nightmare. Technology and evolution of the species accelerated to the point of fusion, to a totally procedural process. The inhabitants of this place are all created by randomized algorithms as totally unique beings. We are like our own private species of genetic art. That rotating machine you probably encountered is where we are all engineered. It's not as bad as it sounds, you know. Around here, we know no power struggles based on appearances, genders, generations. Nobody feels the need to create separated communities. I wonder how it's like to have siblings, though. How it's like to be physically attached to someone, to share more than just ideals, to live in a non-artificial world. Maybe one day, natural processes will reclaim their throne when this planet has healed. Anyway, it's nice and all, but it's so late/early, I'm going to bed. Today's gonna be one unproductive day, let me tell you, folks. So that's something I think that is in a few of the games, is like, they kind of address like the paradoxes, or like there's like a sadness like in Tristan's game, really. Like it's a utopia, but it's like everyone's kind of just like feels kind of isolated, and like they have like nothing to do. They're just like on this like wasteland planet. So it's like, I don't know, I think it's kind of an interesting aspect of this game. And now you'll see that there is this DNA has been added to the file. Okay, so now let's go back to our talk.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Okay, so we wanted first to talk about the word collective. I think that this word is really widely used and sometimes misused. So we kind of wanted to define what for us a collective is, or what our collective is. First, I think we'll explain like what are we not. So like without dissing any of these other things, but more to kind of, I guess, define ourselves from difference from other formats. We're not a game studio, and we're not a design studio. We're not an indie game studio. We're not a group of contractors for hire who work for other people. We're not a shared co-working space, and we're not a group of people working on individual projects in the same room. We're not one fine artist who has a team of technicians behind them who helps them implement their vision or ideas. And unfortunately, we're not making any money from this. We're not nowhere near making our costs back, of course. Any income has to be divided by 10, which is a disadvantage. But on the other hand, when we incur costs, we can divide that by 10. So it has its ups and downs. Okay. Another interesting point about the collective is that we all have other jobs. I think this is pretty common for lots of artists, but it's sometimes something that people are not talking about or not being as open about. In the collective, we have people who work in marketing as programmers, 3D artists. Some people work in a science lab. Some people work in human resources. Some of us are freelancers. Some of us have permanent full-time contracts or part-time contracts. And for many of us, it would not be possible to be artists if we didn't pool our resources and create a structure to work within together. So that's another really important thing about the collective. We think that if people could work together more and create structures to help each other, maybe it would be possible for more people to be artists, and this wouldn't just be, I guess, like the realm of a privileged few. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so to make it clear, we're not trying to criticize other people for working in other ways. I think we're all forced, to some degree, to rely or participate in a society the way it exists right now, and not just our ideal society, and that includes us. But we also wanted to try out a different format for making games, something that's kind of an experiment that maybe allows us to try and make different work. So I've said all of the things that we're not, but what are we actually? Like, what defines our collective? So I guess some of our guiding principles are, first of all, that we work non-hierarchically. So we don't have a boss. There's no creative director. There's not one person deciding what game we make or how we make it. This, of course, can be pretty tricky sometimes. We'll get into that later. We're also not beholden to someone else. So we don't have shareholders. We don't have other people outside of the collective who are telling us what kind of game we make. We actively try not to worry about what kind of game people want us to make. So we also like we are. Sorry, I just got distracted because there's a question in the chat. The question is, how do you manage time and energy while juggling your arts practice alongside your day job? This is a super good question, but we'll come back to it. So not beholden to someone else. So yeah, we don't have shareholders. We also, we have never applied for any grants. This of course like comes with the issue that we really don't have much money to fund our projects. But the positive thing about it is that we're not trying to make games that are aimed at whatever is fashionable in the grants world at the moment. Okay, and the next principle is that there's no one person's creative or technical vision that's more important than another. So we don't try to prioritize the way that certain people think over others. And people's well-being is more important than the project. This is a really important and hard thing to remember and realize. We hope not to die in the making of any of our projects, but we also hope not to, to harm each other, which is harder than it looks.
Right. To address the next question, is it a registered co-op or is it still registered as a company or off the books entirely? And if it is registered as a co-op, what country is it registered in? We are not registered. We just work together. Like we're not a company at all. Okay.
No,
so
I think at some point we would. So most of us are here in Germany. At some point, we maybe will take on non-for-profit status. Up until now, because we haven't made any money, that has not really been necessary. But at some point, maybe it will be helpful for certain things.
So why work like this? Firstly, experimentation in video games often focuses on the game itself rather than the process in which it is created. But let's consider the typical process of game development. Games, like all software, is drawn from a culture of industry, of kind of extraction. So it's like you have like a hierarchical structure, which basically extracts value from the bottom up, and it's a focus on minimizing risk and costs because it is profit driven. So yeah, the people at the bottom make stuff and the people at the top do nothing and make a lot. This is the patterns of industry, and this is like the patterns of mess. Inversely, if you have no hierarchy, it is anti-efficiency and massive risk. When you're profit driven, time is money, which means you have to be efficient in a sense that there cannot be wasted time. Of course, I think as anyone who's worked in a company knows, employees have a very particular idea of what is valuable time that is very strange, but that's another topic entirely. But in our case, time is not money, so we are very anti-efficient. It's impossible to be market driven because of this, because we cannot return a profit in the way that we organize, or if we were profit driven, we would have to seriously change how we work. And no one is going to fund something up front because we do not work in a kind of a blueprint idea, and then we kind of paint by numbers until it's complete. When we start a project, we don't know what it is. When we started Utopias, we wanted to make something about the theme of Utopias, but we didn't huge aspects of what this project is were kind of created very late in development. It's constantly constantly changing and evolving. So you can't apply for funding if you don't have an idea of how the game plays or something like this. Secondly, because of how we work, everything we make is very odd and broken, which means that publishers won't take it on, distribution platforms won't host something like this, other than itch, of course, which is because it's much more of a independent platform than something else. So we can't make money before and we can't make money after. And we are so many people, we are 10 people. So it's this is another thing, if your company employees cost money, so we couldn't be this scale for the kind of things we make either. But having said all this, there are actually practical reasons for it that independent game creators might find interesting. So the pros of being in a swarm is, I think first we'll start with our artistic belief that that different processes for game development make new types of games possible. So when we come back to the innovation happening in content rather than the process, it's if there's different types of processes, different types of ways of making games, that makes new games possible because of that. And of course, this would the way we work would be one of infinite ways that people, could think about like the processes in which they create things. So we focus on collaborative making, but still respect individual vision, like in a more hierarchical structure, like people who are at that bottom of that food chain don't really have any say in anything. They're just laborers, but every member of AAA has a voice and like an equal voice in what the project is. So we are all participating in its direction and kind of making those creative decisions. We are also able to do skill sharing. We come from many different backgrounds. Actually, very few members of AAA are actually like programmers in any sense. Like most of us are like like have a completely self-taught background. So like there are a few people who are really good programmers, but like everyone else is kind of like slam stuff together, which is gonna work most of the time, but they can get help from other people if they need it. Like I'm someone who has a background in like 3D and like knows a lot about 3D stuff, so it's like I can help other people with that, for example. Yeah, so we're able to kind of like just help each other out when we need certain things. We don't have like rigid roles. Like we can kind of do anything and kind of adapt to what other people need.
Jira, maybe that's actually what you were just saying answers the last question. It was about how many projects are you working on simultaneously? If more than one, how fluid are your team structures? I think like what you just said, and I mean, the first part of the question is we're always working on one project at a time, but this question about how fluid are our team structures, super fluid. We're changing roles all the time. Of course, people have strengths and skill sets, and sometimes they work to those, but we actually try to actively resist only working on what we're good at. So we try to, and also like we try to share our skills or teach each other things. And this means the work is less efficient because we're not like like a sausage making factory where everything is done by the person who does the same thing over and over again. But I think working together in this way makes the process way more interesting. There's a lot more exchange and we learn a lot from each other. Sorry to interrupt you, Jira. You can keep going.
No, that's fine. I realized we only have 13 minutes left, so I
exactly.
I
also wanted
through
to
these slides. Okay.
And maybe I will answer some questions as we go, so that we don't, so that people don't miss out on questions if we finish too late.
Yeah. Please interrupt me with questions. Games labor intensive, collaborative design. There's a singular voice. Creative work is not more important than technical or logistical or organization or emotional work. So all work is of equal importance. And lastly, enables us to create like experimental games at a massive scale, which is something you don't see often because it's usually independent solo developers. Now it's Chloe.
Okay, I'll look at the next question here. How do you balance the differing resources in terms of time, availability, finances amongst your collaborators? So this is, again, a super interesting question that I think we address at some point in the talk. So I'll come back to that one. But it's really, this is a really big challenge. Okay, so then the next sort of topic, how does working as a collective kind of play out technically? So with this game, Utopias, as we mentioned, it's 9 executables, which are stitched together into one game. And there's different visions, different aesthetic styles, and these are all sort of brought together in one world. The 9 executables are all in different versions of Unity, and even one game made in Unreal, which is, next slide, Jira. Which is a nightmare. So yeah, this game was actually really, from a technical point of view, a nightmare. And this was something that left us with a big tech debt at the end of the game. So the format evolves from our previous games, which are anthologies. And we kind of wanted to make one seamless experience with many parts. And so we chose to all still make separate executables and bring them into one game. But I guess like what was motivating us was the desire to preserve individual creative vision. So even though we work as a collective, we also still really want to, I guess, like be able to pursue our individual vision in a way that wouldn't be possible, for example, in a game studio. But this caused like this format of working, technically speaking, made it really hard to collaborate. It was a technical nightmare in terms of moving assets around, versioning, doing builds was really crazy. So it left us with a big tech debt at the end of the project. And this really led to, I think, in the last like 6 months of the project, a lot of burnout, which I'll go into this more, but I think that addresses some of the question about how do you manage time and energy while juggling this alongside your other day job. It's not super easy. And at least how we managed it with this game was not perfect, and it's not sustainable yet. Like we still really need to work on that. So yeah, from both a technical perspective and an organizational perspective, it would have been better to create a structure to work within that didn't force everyone to contribute one whole world. And it really made it hard for people to contribute as little or as much as was right for them in that moment. So maybe that also addresses this question: how do you support or balance different resources in terms of time, availability, finances, and also just sometimes desire or energy? All of us have different capacity at different times and a different desire to make. And what we really want to focus on, I guess, in our next project, or a challenge for us in the way we work, is we want to improve the structure so that when someone says, hey, I'm really busy for the next 3 months and I don't have much time to contribute, that this doesn't negatively affect the other people in the group. And they shouldn't have to feel guilty about that. So yeah, the structure of the game had a lot of negatives for us. But the positive thing, I think, still is that it really brought up this kind of like interesting conversation around the creative tension between our different styles and our different ideas. And I think that's the underlying thing that makes the game exciting.
So,
okay, Jira, your turn again.
Practically speaking, how did we work together? So there are massively multiplayer marathon meetings. We have a lot of meetings because we do not have, because the structure of everything is like collaboratively determined. We have to negotiate things constantly. So like we, all the aspects of the game, how does it work? What is it like? How's it going to end? Like all these things. Like we have to decide on them collectively. So like, especially for this project, there were so many meetings. We have a Slack chat, and like which I'm sure most of you are common with. It's like it's just like an instant messaging thing. It is from the from the startup world. Like it's like an office tool, which I guess is something that like we should probably reconsider, because it's like I think it's bringing in a lot of
I think those tools have a lot of their own biases that come from the world they were made in.
Yeah, it has like a lot of an industrial bias, and like and it's also we like a lot of us kind of associate it with work, which means it can be like pretty exhausting or upsetting to use, like if you've like been using it all day or something. There's like we have isolated bursts and loopbacks. Like we because we're not paid, like we work on this like when we can. It's like it's not like a constant thing. Like sometimes there'll be like long periods and not much happening, and then like we'll be like, oh, we have to do this thing for this this deadline that might be self-imposed or based on some show or something, and then we'll kind of do that. We have art prisons, which is like, I guess, our term we use for game jams, where we all kind of meet up, which brings us into the last one, which is like we do a lot of like 2 or 3 person groups. Like we kind of like we're 10 people, but it's like we do a lot of like smaller groups who kind of work on things collaboratively, which is especially towards the end of the project, which is also really fun, because it's like the best part of being in a collaborative group is working with other people.
We have no form. And say we have 5 minutes, so maybe we can do the next 2, like this slide and the next one, and skip the last 3.
Okay, so alignment over consensus. We do not have a formalized decision-making process, which is like something I would consider to be a problem with how we work currently. How kind of being able to create decisions is like, hugely important, and this is something we still need to work on. We currently just do it like based on we all have to agree. And additionally, communication and care are time consuming and therefore expensive, but we consider it worth it. These are the real costs that, for example, in the workplace are ignored. It's still always an experiment. No money means we have to work more, which means we did burn ourselves out. We try to resist overwork, overly focusing on productivity, but often don't succeed. We still need to make more work into making like other kinds of labor that aren't game development more visible and appreciated. We have to actively resist falling into specialization. We basically have to unlearn the violent methods of communication and collaboration that we have all been conditioned into, as it's an ongoing process. We don't have the answers yet. It's like a process, and we're still trying to figure out like an alternate method for game development. All right, so okay. You want me to skip these? Or
well, actually, someone just said it's okay to run over a few minutes. Good news. Okay.
So this is going to be a 2-hour presentation now.
Just kidding. Okay, so I guess we just went through a lot of ideas and a lot of comments and reflection on the way we worked, and to kind of bring it back to the why, or what's the point. Why do people, we're not the only people working, kind of 2 jobs, 1 unpaid, to make creative work. Many people are doing this. And why do people do this? And I guess what's really important to us is actually weirdness. I think games are a really capitalist medium. They're very productivity focused. Not all games, of course, but as a medium, there is a tendency for games to be about achieving something, achieving goals, mining resources, shaping civilizations, taming nature. And there's also in the audience sometimes a low level of tolerance for strangeness, for challenging audiences, really challenging them, not just with a technical challenge, and for confusing people in an interesting way. It feels like sometimes usability rules over poetry, or game design rules over poetry. So next slide, Jira. So yeah, I think what really drives us is to be able to make work that doesn't fit into that rubric. I really like this quote, poetry protects language from serving any master. And what this means to me is that I guess the idea of poetry and poetry itself, it's kind of an anti-capitalist or anti-productivity format. It refuses to fit the form of commerce. I think things that sometimes don't quite make sense straight away, or that make connections in other ways, maybe more sensory things, they appeal to us in a different way, and maybe also remind us that a different world is possible, which I think is really important. We live in a time at the moment where people are realizing that another world is possible and that things can change. And we hope that art plays a role in reminding people that. There's 2 more questions. Should I read them out, Jira?
Let's do the second one.
Okay, so was being in the same physical place critical? I
would say absolutely. I think I didn't realize personally how important that is until towards the end of this project. And it is like a like, you know, with a member that's in like another place, it's like it's a challenge with how we work, but like, you know, we will work on it, like but it's like being in the same space does make communication a lot easier, and also it's like there's like, you know, like when like we could go we really wanted to go into like the problems that we experienced now that the project is over, but one of them is the way we structured this with all the utopias is that there was a lot of solo work, which was kind of like really draining and negative because it's like solo work, but it's still in a collaborative project, so it's like you don't even like, it was kind of like getting the like a very kind of the worst of both worlds in a way. But towards the end of the project, we did.
At some point, it felt like we became each other's bosses, which like kind of funny because the title of the presentation is like no bosses. But I think what we really want to avoid in the future is making each other feel like we're each other's bosses. It shouldn't feel like that.
Yeah, like to mutate a quote, there is a boss in all of our heads and he must be destroyed. Like, but yeah, like it's like, so we all had our own things, but then towards the end of this, we did a lot more direct collaboration. It was so much funner. And that's another reason that we want to work on one project next time, like instead of like multiple EXCs, is so that there's much more direct collaboration. And that's much easier if you're all in the same space. Of course, it is possible if you're not. Don't know what to say about this. Do you want to say something, Chloe?
I would just sum up this like last slide by saying, I guess one of the reasons that we work together the way we do is because we believe culture is made by people, not just by corporations, companies, not just in professional contexts. Culture is made by people, and we are people, and you are people too. Yeah. So we also wanted to say before we leave that we have this game, Utopias, and it is in a bundle, which probably many of you have already heard about, the Bundle for Racial Justice and Equality. There's over 1,000 works. The proceeds will be donated to the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund and Community Bail Fund. It'll be split 50-50. So if you haven't already and you want to play our game or any of the other thousands of games in there, go ahead. It's a minimum of $5 donation and going to a great cause.
Yeah, and I guess lastly, go to our website. We have a blog, which I think is very lovely, and you might enjoy some of our texts. And
yeah, I think that blog also goes in deeper into some of the ideas we talked about today. So maybe if you're interested in collaboration and collectivity, but also, I guess, some of the problems with making games and art today, you can read more about what we think on our blog. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for playing. Maybe I will, Chloe, I don't know how you feel about this, but we could answer these questions in the chat after this is over.
Oh yeah, true. I mean, I think we'll stop talking, but yeah, we could join the chat on the stream, and then we can answer any other questions people have. Oh, it says jump on Twitter. Okay.
Jump on. That's a good idea. Okay, so we can answer these questions on Twitter. Okay, yeah, just at us, and maybe we'll answer these. We'll like post tweets with the question and the answer as well. Yeah.
Okay. So our Twitter is there. Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Freeplay. I really hope that we can go next year. I'd really love to see what's happening in Australia. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having us. How do we end this?